again. So we are doing this Canto 5, Chapter 10, verse 23, a discussion between Jadabharata and Maharaja Rahugana. So before going ahead, we'll just chant the prayer. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Giridhari Radhe Jaya Radha Giridhari Radhe Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadra, Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadra, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Gurudev, Jaya Jaya Gurudev, Jaya Jaya Gurudev, Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Hare Krishna. Thank you again, everyone, for joining. So, before going ahead, we'll just chant the invocation prayers. Om apavitro pavitro va sarvavastham gatopi va yasmaret pundarikaksham sa bahya abhyantaram shuchihi Shri Vishnu Shri Vishnu Shri Vishnu Om ajnanatimirandhasya jnananjana shalakaya chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadhamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaganaraguna Tanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratishe Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripatam Aham Vande Paramananda Madhavam Shri Gurum Dinataranam Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Shrinvatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanaha Hridayantasto Hababdhrani Vidonoti Surutsatam Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. Again, just to remind myself, whatever little bit we are able to speak or read, it's only thanks to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, without whose contributions throughout his life and especially towards the latter part of his life, where he translated, not just translated, his commentaries, his Bhaktivedanta commentaries on these scriptures, Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, as well as lots of other more books, Lord teachings of Lord Chaitanya and others, without which we would have no access to any of this information. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada. So, okay, I think we're not here. Let me just go to the site. Yeah, chapter 32, if I'm correct. Make it bigger. Yeah, here's where we are. Am I correct, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji, you are in the correct place. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, we just read Srila Prabhupada's Ilamrita. Whether at a life member's home or at a formal lecture before a large audience or in his own room, Prabhupada continued speaking from Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam about Krishna and Krishna consciousness. Of this, he never tired. A guest would ask a question and Srila Prabhupada would begin his answer by having one of his disciples read a relevant verse from the Bhagavad Gita. Then he would explain it. If the guest was unsubmissive and wanted to challenge, Prabhupada would argue. Sitting at his low desk, occasionally drinking water from his lota, Prabhupada would talk hour after hour. The temperature rose to 100 degrees, and as Prabhupada sat in his room preaching, he wore no shirt, only a simple top cloth, which left his arms, shoulders, and part of his chest bare. Sometimes the devotees sitting with him will be sick or sleepy or otherwise inattentive, and sometimes they would excuse themselves, returning hours later to find him still preaching. Guests also came and went, yet, except for a nap after lunch, Srila Prabhupada kept preaching, often throughout the day and into the night. Never bored with the subject matter, he would speak as long as there was an interested hearer. His audience varied. Sometimes he would speak to a room of husbands and wives, all cultured and well dressed, and sometimes he would speak to one lone old man. Sometimes his audience listened quietly or argued, or even when appreciating, showed their misunderstanding. Sometimes the guest would ask why he criticized Bengal's reputed saints and politicians, and he would explain on the basis of Srimad Bhagavad Gita that the real sadhu always glorifies Krishna. Should we stop there, Prabhu?
That's fine, Prabhu.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So, yeah, see, we are amazed at the energy of Srila Prabhupada. So, yeah, so we'll continue with Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 10, verse 23, the discussion between Jadabharata and Maharaja Rahu Gana. So, we'll just see briefly what the devotees have already covered in the previous sessions. So, King Rahugana, the king of Sindhu and Sauvira, he was traveling to Kapilashrama on a pilgrimage to Kapil the Muni's ashram, and suddenly on the way, one of the palanquin carriers was probably injured or sick, so they needed another palanquin carrier, and they chose Jadabharata. They found him, and they found him as a young man, and he was very strong, so they chose him for carrying the palanquin. And when they engaged him in the service, they found that he was carrying it erratically. And the reason why he was doing it, because he wanted to avoid stepping on the little insects and ants on the road because of his great compassion. And King Rahugana initially was quite annoyed, and his few servants feared his anger, and they told him that no, they were not responsible. It was this new palanquin bearer. And kings showed his anger and sarcastic remarks towards Jadabharata, as if he was concerned about him, but actually he was being sarcastic. And Jadabharata, but still quietly, he was persisting in his behavior. He was quietly stubborn that he would not give up his compassion. And the king's words became very more and more harsh and angry at him, that he would give him severe punishment. And the reason was that he did not recognize the advance, the Mahabhagavata in Jadabharata. And Jadabharata relates the king's harsh words to its analytical knowledge of body and soul. So all the harsh words and what all he has told against is again about his body, everything he relates to the analytical knowledge of body and soul. That how those words don't really affect him because he is only criticizing the body. And the self realized persons, we see from his words, the person who has got Atma Jnana, the self realized person's detachment from all his bodily activities. He's just performing it just like an automaton. He's just doing that. And unaffected by the body's characteristics and condition, and unaffected by anybody's criticism or praise of the characteristics and condition. And Jadabharata shows by his remarks to Rahugana that material designations, positions, and roles are all only temporary. It can get interchanged one lifetime after another. And punishment affects neither the dullard nor the self-realized person. No, you can be in the absolute mode of ignorance, or you can be in the absolute. Even Prabhupada says, even if a person in the absolute mode of ignorance and the person in the absolute mode of pure goodness, neither is affected by material punishment or praise. It's only the people in the middle. And the great devotee patiently and humbly tolerates the results of his past karma, as we have seen even in what Lord Brahma says in the 10th canto, patiently suffering the results of the past karma. And by these words, King Rahugana realizes Jadabharata's exalted position. That's a Mahabhagavata, that he is not an ordinary palanquin carrier. And then he pays him his humble obeisances and apologies. He inquires about the true identity and mission of Jadabharata, and he reveals his fear of offending a Brahmana, that there is no greater offense than that. And his puzzlement, he is still not fully agreeing to what Jadabharata is saying. He is puzzled at his advanced words, and he accepts him as a representative of Kapila Deva. So why should he go all the way to Kapilashram? The representative of Kapila Deva is right there in front of him, and humbly inquires how to progress in spiritual life. Humble inquiries. And he says, even though you are claiming that yes, the material conditions don't affect the soul, but the soul does appear to be affected by material conditions as material relationships, as the devotees have explained in the previous sessions. So how do you explain that? So with that we come to the verse for today. That is 5:10:23. षष्ठाभिगोप्ता नृपति प्रजानां य किङ्करो वै न पिनष्टि पिष्टं स्वधर्ममाराधनमच्युतस्य यद् ईहमानो विजहात्य अघौघम्. Yeah. Anybody, other devotee wants to try chanting the verse?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I am trying one.
Yes, Prabhu. Sure, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Shasthaभिगुप्ता निपोतिः प्रजानां यः किङ्करो वैन पिनष्टि पिष्टं स्वधर्ममाराधनमच्युतस्य यदिहमानो विजहात् अघोघम्.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Krishna Prabhuji.
Any other devotee?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Mataji, please, please.
शास्ताभिगोप्ता निपति प्रजानां यः किङ्करो वै न पिनोष्टि पिष्टं स्वधर्ममाराधनमच्युतस्य यद् इह मानो विजहात्य अघौघम्.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Yes, yes. Please, please, please.
Shastabhigopta nirapati prajanam yakinkaro vanapि nasti pistam swadharmam aradhanam achyutasya yad iyamano vijahat agau agam. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. I am also practicing.
Dandot Pranam, Mataji. Dandot Pranam, please.
शास्ताभिगोप्ता नृपतिः प्रजानां यः किङ्करो वै न पिनष्टि पिष्टं स्वधर्ममाराधनम् अच्युतस्य यदिह माना विजहात् घौघम्. Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Thank you very much. So we'll go to the synonyms now. Any of the devotees want to read the synonyms?
Yes, Prabhu, I can read.
Please, 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 Mataji.
Sasta, the governor. Abhigupta, a well-wisher of the citizens, as a father is the well-wisher of his children. Ripoti, the king. Prajanam, of the citizens, Yah, one who. King Karaha, order carrier. Why, indeed, na, not. Pinashti pishtam, grinds what is already ground. Sadharmam, wants one occupational duty. Aradhanam, worshipping. Achyutasya, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yat, which. Iha manaha, performing. Vijayhati, they are released from agha agham, all kinds of sinful activity and faulty action. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Any other devotee wants to read the translation?
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna, Prabhu.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, please, please.
go ahead, Prabhu.
Okay. Translation translation by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. My dear sir, you have said that the relationship between the king and the subject or between the master and the servant are not eternal. But although such relationships are temporary, when a person takes the position of a king, his duty is to rule the citizen and punish those who are disobedient to the laws. By punishing them, he teaches the citizen to obey the laws of the state. Again, you have said that punishing a person who is deaf and dumb is like chewing the chewed or grinding the pulp. That is to say, there is no benefit in it. However, if one is engaged in his own occupational duty as ordered by the Supreme Lord, his, his sinful activities his sinful activities are certainly diminished. Therefore, if one is engaged in his occupational duty by force, he benefits because he can vanquish all the sinful positions. Can you take it up? Yeah. He can vanquish all his sinful activities in that way. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much. Any other
Hare
devotee
Krishna, Prabhu. Shall I read the
Yeah,
purport?
yeah, yeah. Please, 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 Prabhu. Yeah.
Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. This argument offered by Maharaj Rahuguna is certainly very effective in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.4. Ila Rupa Goswami says, Tasmat kenapi upayene mana Krishna nivesayate. Somehow or other, one should engage in Krishna consciousness. Actually, every living being is eternal servant of Krishna, but due to forgetfulness, a living entity engages himself as an eternal servant of Maya. As long as one is engaged in Maya's service, he cannot be happy. Our Krishna consciousness movement aims at engaging people in Lord's Krishna's service. That will help them become free from all material contamination and sinful activities. And this this is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 4.10. Vijata Raga Bhaya Krodha. By becoming detached from material activities, we will be freed from fear and anger. By austerity, one becomes purified and eligible to return home, back to Godhead. The duty of king is to rule his citizen in such a way that they can become Krishna consciousness. This would be very beneficial for everyone. Unfortunately, the king or president engage people in sense gratification instead of Lord's service, and such activities are certainly not beneficial for anyone. King Rahuguna tried to engage Jat Bharata in carrying the palgium, which is a form of sense gratification for king. However, if one is engaged as a palanquin carrier in the Lord's service, that is certainly beneficial. In this godless civilization, if the president engages people somehow or the other into the devotional service or the awakening of Krishna consciousness, he renders the very best service to the citizen. Hare Krishna Prabhu. Tanmal Pranam.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Such a wonderful purport by Srila Prabhupada. Just read the translation again. My dear sir, you have said that relationship, that is Maharaja Rahugana is saying. My dear sir, you have said that the relationship between the king and the subject or between the master and servant are not eternal. But although such relations are temporary, when a person takes the position of a king, his duty is to rule the citizens and punish those who are disobedient to the laws. By punishing them, he teaches the citizens to obey the laws of the state. Again, you have said that punishing a person who is deaf and dumb is like chewing the chewed or grinding the pulp. That is to say, there is no benefit in it. However, if one is engaged in his own occupational duty as ordered by the Supreme Lord, his sinful activities are certainly diminished. Therefore, if one is engaged in his occupational duty by force, he benefits because he can vanquish all the sinful activities in that way. Guru Gauram Girisheshtam Yo Vishnambhena Sevate Madhavam Tulasi Rama Krishna Kirtim Kiram Suve Nom Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vishnamba Madhava Swami Iti Namine. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So come to a very, very interesting verse, interesting point, what Maharaja Rahugana has spoken. And I was just noting, usually like any of the verses, Prabhupada, he picks up and says, yes, this is an important point. For example, you would have expected that you would say that, yes, Maharaja Rahugana is setting the example as a king. or as a king, his responsibility. So that's an important point. But here he seems to be rejecting the entire position of Maharaja Raugana's statement, even though the argument, the position seems to be very, very rational and rational position what Maharaja Raugana is expressing. So that's quite interesting, I thought. So, and king ensuring, yes, he's saying a valid point, no? Perform prescribed duties and thus minimize sinful activity, because you're engaged most of your time in performing prescribed duties. You have little time, idle mind is devil's workshop, so you have little time for sinful activities. So he seems to be making a valid point, no? So coming to think of this, there's this Vedic paths, no? They both are prescribed by the Vedas, no? Both are approved by the Vedas, the Pravritti Marg and the Nivritti Marg. Srila Prabhupada also speaks of it in many other places, no? Regulated enjoyment or renunciation, because both are the enjoyment is also prescribed in the Vedas, no? So we see this material system itself, no? The Lord Himself has established in this world the material system, and the material system He Himself says in the Bhagavad Gita, Chaturvarnyam Maya Shishtam Guna Karma Vibhagashah Tasya Kartaram Apima Vidya Kartaram Avyayam. According to the three modes of material nature. So that means it's a material world. No? The work associated with them, the four divisions of human society are created by me. And although I am the creator of the system, you should know that I am the non-doer and being unchangeable. So in this material world, he has established a system by which people might carry about their daily activities, but in a regulated manner. And even if you see in the previous canto also, where the devotees already covered this, where we see that the women, woman who meets Puranjana, she also makes this argument. If you recall, no? He says, "Dharmo artratra kamaucha prajanando mritam yashaha loka vishoka viraja yanna kevalino vidohu." So she's saying the woman, she says to Puranjana, in this material world, the householder's lives brings all kinds of happiness in religion, economic development, sense gratification, begetting of children, sons and grandsons. After that, one may desire liberation as well as material reputation. The householder can appreciate the results of all sacrifices which enable him to gain promotion to higher planets, superior planetary systems. All this material happiness is practically unknown to the transcendentalists. They cannot even imagine such happiness. No? She is saying, and even here she is saying, according to authorities, the householder life is pleasing not only to oneself but to all the forefathers, demigods, great sages, saintly persons, and everyone else. A householder life is very beneficial. So what's wrong? What's wrong? It's beneficial to everyone. They're fulfilling the debts to everyone in the society, in the forefathers, everyone. So, and also we see other great personalities also. No, in the sixth canto, we see this. So he says, "Nanu bhuya na janati puman vishaya tikshnata nirvidyate swayam tasma na tata bhinna di parai." So this is Maharaja Daksha who is speaking to Narada. After Narada, his first his 10,000 sons and then his 1,000 sons, he makes them all sannyasis. No? And so Maharaja Daksha is telling to Narada, he's telling, material enjoyment is indeed the cause of unhappiness, but one cannot give it up unless one has personally experienced how much suffering it is. Therefore, one should be allowed to remain in so-called material enjoyment while simultaneously advancing in knowledge to experience the misery of this false material happiness. Then, without help from others, one will find material enjoyment detestful. Those whose minds are changed by others do not become as renounced as those who have personal experience. Again, it seems a very valid argument. No? He's telling, yes, let's learn by experience. Let's undergo this material happiness and see how pointless it is, and then learn by their experience. He continues. He says, although I live in household life with my wife and children, I honestly follow the Vedic injunctions by engaging in fruitive activities to enjoy life without sinful reactions. I have performed all kinds of yajnas, including Deva Yajna, Rishi Yajna, Pitru Yajna, and Rig Yajna. I have performed my debts to all these people. Because the yajnas are called vratas, I am known as Griha Vrata. No? I'm in a very good position, Griha Vrata. Unfortunately, you have given me great displeasure by misguiding my sons. for no reason to the path of renunciation. So I cannot tolerate this, he says. I already tolerated, I cannot tolerate. No? And similarly, we see this talk between Maharaja Yadu also. No? Yadu also, he makes this argument to his father, Yayati Maharaj. No? So Yayati Maharaj is saying, my dear son, I am not yet satisfied in my sexual desires because he has become old. He has cursed by Shukracharya. And he requests Maharaja Yadu, if you are kind to me, you can take the old age given by your grandfather, and I may take your youth, so that I may enjoy life for few years more. No? And Maharaja Yadu replies, Sir, Sri Yaduruvacha, Notsahe Jarasa Sthatum Antara Praptya Tava Avidvata Sukham Gramyam Vaitrishnam Naiti Purushaha. He's saying, my dear father, you already achieved old age, although you are also a young man. But I do not welcome your old age and invalidity. But for unless one enjoys material happiness, one cannot attain renunciation. He says it's a prerequisite. Material enjoyment is a prerequisite for renunciation. And the conception that everyone has to play the prescribed roles, how we can cause chaos in society by if we don't play our prescribed roles. So we have to go through this material relationships and activities. That's what the personalities say. So the other side is renunciation, the answer. No? So we see in Pravritti Marga, it is not going is not always very smooth. No? So I may very sincerely put my efforts. I may sincerely acquire wealth for my enjoyment. But what happens? Nadayam nopagayo bhogyam cha lubdher yad dukkha sanchitam bhumte tad api tad chanyo madhu hevartamain madhu. No? He says a greedy person accumulates a large quantity of money with great struggle and pain. I may say I have acquired it religiously. But the person who has struggled to acquire so much wealth is not always allowed to enjoy it himself or give it in charity to others. The greedy man is like the bee who struggles to produce a large quantity of honey, which is then stolen by a man who will enjoy it personally or sell it to others. No matter how carefully one hides our hard-earned wealth or tries to protect it, there are those who are expert in detecting the whereabouts of valuable things and steal it. So acquirer may not be the enjoyer. And the second thing, yes, I may be thinking I'm following all the rules, but there are risks even on the royal highway. What Srila Prabhupada says in the Bhagavad Gita purport as well. No? He says, even though there are principles, yes, Vedic principles are there to regulate attachment and aversion relating to senses and objects. I'm very strictly following those principles. But there is a chance because of the modes of nature that I may come under the control of such attachment and aversion, and I may end up stumbling on the path of self-realization. So I may be thinking on the Pravritti Marga, I am progressing to self-realization, but I may stumble. So there are risks on the royal road. And even though I may say, okay, I'll enjoy and then give it up, but actually I may never tire of material enjoyment, as Prahlad Maharaj also says, the living entity never tires. And in the Bhagavatam, in the first canto, it is said, even the prescribed duty, even if I perform it very, very carefully, the religious duties can end up becoming useless labor. Dharma svanushtita pumsam vishwaksena katasu yaha na utpadayet yadi ratim shrama evhai kevalam. So in spite of all the activities, occupational activities I perform according to the position, and it may end up as useless labor if they do not provoke attraction for the message. If I consider this as the ultimate goal, provoke attraction for the message of personality of Godhead. So there's lots of risks, and realization that material achievement. Eventually, I'll realize that material achievement is insignificant, but God knows when that will be. No? Of course, in the fifth canto also, we have seen this. No? A dream becomes automatically known to a person as false and immaterial, and eventually one realizes that material happiness in this life or next is insignificant. When one realizes the Vedas, although an excellent source, are insufficient to bring about direct knowledge of the truth. So I may be hoping that one day or the other I'll realize that. And then I'll realize that Vedas is not there. The Vedic principles, even though it prescribes that, it's not the direct way to get to the ultimate truth. So that's why this Pravritti Marga has been rejected by all the great personalities, by like Srila, especially Srila Prahlad Maharaja. Prahlad Maharaja, he very emphatically rejects it in the 7th canto. And again, we see even in the Padyavali, that is, he quotes Madhavendra Puri Goswami. No? He says, Sandhya Vandana Bhadram Astu Bhavato Bho Snana Tubhyam Namo Bho Deva Pitarascha Tarpana Vidhau Naham Kshama Kshamyatam Yatra Kwapi Nishadya Yadava Kulottamasya Kamsadvisha Smaram Smaram Agham Harami Tad Alam Manye Kimna Anyename. Madhavendra Puri Goswami is saying, Sandhya Vandana, may they be auspicious for you. O bathing, obeisances unto you. O devas and forefathers, I am unable to perform oblations. Please pardon me. Sitting somewhere, I will dispel all sin by continuously remembering the crown of the Yadu dynasty, the enemy of Kamsa. I consider that sufficient. What is the use of anything else to me? And similarly, even Yamunacharya and others, they say that. So even in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita also, Lord Krishna, he advocates rising above the pravritti marga. No? He says, Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunyo Bhavarjuna Nirdvandvo Nitya Sattvasto Niryoga Kshema Atmavan. So the Vedas deal mainly with the subject of the three modes of material nature, but he advises to become transcendental to these three modes, be free from all dualities and all anxieties for gain and safety, and be established in the self. And the topmost, the pure devotional service, Prahlad Maharaja, he recommends, that is where he says, Shravanam, Kirtanam, then Smaranam, then the nine processes he recommends. No? So the pure devotional service, the topmost transcendentalists, they say reject everything. No? Reject everything and go to the topmost. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma Nivedanam. Iti Pumsarpita Vishnu, Bhaktis Chain Navalakshana, Kriyeta Bhagavat Yadda, Tanmanye Aditam Uttamam. He's saying this is the topmost. These 9 activities are the topmost. Don't spend time on anything else, he says. No? And even in the 11th canto also, we see this similarly mentioned. No? That is, it says, Devarshi Bhutaptan Rinam Pitrinam Na Kinkaro Nayam Rinirtna Rajan Sarvatmanaya Sharanam Sharanyam Gato Mukundam Parihritya Kartam. He says, I don't have any debts to anyone. I've given up all material duties and who has taken shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda. He is not indebted to demigods, great sages, ordinary living beings, relatives, friends, mankind, or even one's forefathers who have passed away. Since all such classes of living entities are parts and parcel of Supreme Lord, one who has surrendered to Lord's service need not serve such persons separately. And Krishna also demands selfless surrender. Sarva dharman parityajya, he says in the 18th chapter. Mamekam sharanam braja. So what is the solution? But the point is, I have no qualification or ability for such pure activities. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu is not easy. Shravanam Kirtanam Smaranam is not easy. No? I'm doing Kirtanam, my mind is running somewhere else. Shravanam I'm doing, my mind is running somewhere else. Smaranam is very long way off. No? Let alone all the other activities. No qualification, no ability for any such pure activities. Let alone surrender what Krishna demands. So, is there a middle path? The Vedic path we have rejected, that Pravritti Marga, and this is pure devotional service is for the most exalted, the purest of the pure. And so, is a solution to giving up all fruitive activities. But again, in the 18th chapter, the Lord says, some learned men declare that all kinds of fruitive activities should be given up. Yet other sages maintain that acts of charity, sacrifice, and penance should never be abandoned. So what is the solution? No? So then, and Krishna reveals in the Bhagavad Gita that an ordinary person especially cannot just avoid any of the activities. In the 3rd chapter, he says, even though I may be thinking I'm avoiding activities, but my mind is dwelling on sense gratification. So there's no question of avoiding activities. And so he recommends that devotional service is better than renunciation, better than utter renunciation. He says in the fifth chapter as well, he says, Sannyasas tu mahabaho dukkham aptum ayogataha yoga yukto munir brahma na chirenadi gacchati. Merely renouncing all activities, yet not engaging in the devotional service of the Lord, cannot make one happy. But a thoughtful person engaged in devotional service can achieve the supreme without delay. And even the yoga, no, the Bhagavad Gita is a bhakti text. It's a devotional literature. But even the bhakti yoga, even the Bhagavad Gita, it prescribes the yoga ladder. He says, yes, I am not qualified for Atma Jnana, so I have to perform the karma yoga. And then once I perform the Nishkama Karma Yoga, then I am qualified for Atma Jnana, then the Jnana Yoga, then after that Dhyana Yoga. I perform the Smaranam, meditation on the Lord, on the Super Soul, and then only finally Bhakti Yoga, which is the topmost in the ladder. And even the 11th canto in the Bhagavatam also, it is said, Tavat karmani kurvita na nirvidyeta yavata matkatha shravanadova shraddha yavan na jayate. As long as one is not satiated by fruitive activity and has not awakened his taste for devotional service by Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, one has to act according to the regulative principles of the Vedic injunctions. Even if I desire enjoyment, I should act according to the regulative principles of the Vedic injunctions. So, and the right attitude also, he describes, in the to prescribed duties. Even if I'm performing prescribed duties, the Lord says the right attitude is detachment. Perform, don't avoid the prescribed duties, but perform it with detachment. And he says by doing or perform the prescribed duties, so Krishna himself is taking a cautious path in the Bhagavad Gita. He's not saying just give up everything and surrender unto me. He's telling finally, but throughout the Bhagavad Gita, he says perfection by prescribed duties. In the 18th chapter also, he says, Svesve karmani abhirataha samsiddhim labate naraha swakarma nirata siddhim yata vindati tachrunu. By following his qualities of his work, every man can become perfect. Qualities, his own whatever qualities or modes of nature he is, by performing those duties, he describes how we can become perfect. And even in the 9th chapter also, he gives the same thing. He says, Yat karosi yad ashnasi, yad juhosi dadati yat, yat tapasyasi kaunteya tat kurushva mad arpanam. He's telling, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer or give away, whatever austerities you perform, do that, dovetail it to Krishna. He says, dovetail that to Krishna. So, whatever ordinary activities I'm performing, the Lord says, giving a clue as to how to dovetail it. And I say, at the same time, he says, I cannot imitate others. Just because somebody else is doing something, I cannot say, okay, let me do that. Because I may not have the adhikar for that. I may not have the qualification for that. How I can imitate others, that he is doing that, so let me do that. No? Two places in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, 18th chapter as well as in the 3rd chapter. And the Lord himself sets the example. No? Lord is all perfect. He comes to this material world, but what does he say in the material world? Karmanaiva hi samsiddhim astita janakadayaha loka sangraham evapi sampashyam kartum arasi. King Saja Janaka attained perfection solely by performing prescribed duties. Therefore, just for the sake of educating the people in general, you should perform your work. And he himself says, even though I have no duties, even though I have no desires, still I am engaged in performing prescribed duties. And so we come to this concept of Daivi Varnashrama. Daivi Varnashrama, that is Varnashrama, Vedic activities dovetail to devotional service. So we see even Ramananda Rai also, he says, he quotes from the Vishnu Purana, he says where the Varnashrama activities can be dovetailed to Krishna, then that is the topmost, he says initially to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And even in the Bhagavatam, we see this. Atha pumbir dvija shreshta varnashrama vibhagashaha sanushtistasya dharmasya samsiddhir hari toshanam. He says, O best among the twice born, it is therefore concluded that the highest perfection one can achieve by discharging the duties prescribed for one's own occupation or caste divisions or orders of life is to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, the middle path. So, how do we fit in devotional service? Yes, he says this cannot be avoided. Doing a prescribed duty in the middle path, as long as you're not qualified for the higher activities, we have to perform the prescribed duties. So, how we can fit in devotional service? So, this is where the Acharya, the great genius of Srila Prabhupada comes in. He says, somehow or the other, no? Somehow or the other. He quotes from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. He says, Yata Saptame, Tasmat Kenapi Upayena Mana Krishna Nivesiyat. Somehow or the other, you squeeze in Krishna consciousness. And that by things, he actually is giving us a clue as to how to jump the yoga ladder. Jump the yoga ladder. Somehow or the other, one must think of Krishna by any favorable methods. So even in the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita also, he says that. In the midst of daily activities, in the in the 8th chapter, in the 3rd chapter also he says this. He says you cannot give up battle. You are a Kshatriya. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yudhyacha. Yudhyacha means doing battle. Mayarpita manobuddhir mame vaishyasya asamshayaha. You should always think of me in the form of Krishna and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. So we cannot avoid. With your activities dedicated to Krishna and a mind and intelligence fixed on Krishna, you will attain Krishna without doubt. He is telling to Arjuna. And this is how Prabhupada again quotes from the 4th chapter. He says, Vitaraga Bhaya Krodha. So these things which drag us down back into material nature, that is attachment, that is strong attachment, lust, raga, then fear, lust, fear and anger. Lust, fear and anger, the 3 enemies which drag us down. He says we can free from this material contamination by squeezing in, somehow or the other, squeezing in Krishna consciousness into our daily activities. And even in the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita also says, he says this is the only way of coming above the 3 gunas. And for this, obviously, we require the right guidance required from the leaders. So even the 5th canto, as we have seen earlier, what Rishabhadev tells to his sons, he says the person, he cannot become a father, he cannot become a mother, he cannot become a leader, no, unless he is guiding them how to inject devotional service into the daily activities. So that is required of the leadership. That is required of the leadership, as Prabhupada also says this. And ultimately, we talk about Kripa Siddhas. No, Kripa Siddha, by the mercy of the Acharyas, mercy of the great devotees, we get perfection. Forget perfection. Even to do the practice without mercy, it is just not possible without the mercy of the Acharyas. No? Kripa sadhana rather than Kripa Siddha. No? So both, even Rahugana will also say that in the later chapter. No? He says, Rahuganaita tapasana yati na chejya nirvapanad grihadva na chandasa naiva jalagni surya vina mahat pada rajobhishekam. He says. Even Prahlad Maharaj also says this in the 7th chapter. My dear Rahugana, unless one has opportunity, Jadabharata is saying this to Rahugana, to smear his body with the dust of the lotus feet of the great devotees, one cannot realize absolute truth. One cannot realize absolute truth simply by observing celibacy, strictly following the rules and regulations of householder life, leaving home as vanaprastha, accepting sannyasa, undergoing severe penances in winter by keeping oneself submerged in water, or surrounding himself in summer by fire and the scorching heat of the sun. There are many other processes to understand the absolute truth, but the absolute truth is only revealed to one who has attained the mercy of a great devotee. And similarly, even Prahlad Maharaj also says the same thing. So even to do a practice, we require the mercy. And somehow or the other, inject, like Krishna says, we cannot disturb this material world. Like, no, it's just like in the prison, no? Somehow or the other, I got into prison. I've done some heinous activities. I am in prison. And just because in the prison I behave nicely, it's not that the guard is going to tell me, okay, tomorrow you leave the prison. No, I have to go through the parole process. No? Parole might be rejected. No? I might go and they say, no, you have to be in the prison for 10 more years. So obviously I have to be patient. I have to tolerate. Tolerance is very important. I have to tolerate the prison conditions, no? And still continue to perform the sadhana by the mercy of the greater devotees. And no, I don't lose anything. No, it's not that I am stuck in the prison. So what is the use of performing devotion? What is the use of squeezing in Krishna consciousness? I'm not able to leave prison. No, I don't lose anything. The Lord also says in the Bhagavad Gita, just by performing that, I progress gradually and steadily. I progress. In the 9th chapter also he says that, no, whatever be the birth, no, whether I am born as a woman or a lower caste or totally unqualified as well. So, but still I have a chance to escape this prison-like conditions by squeezing in Krishna consciousness in whatever I am doing. Squeezing in Krishna in whatever I am doing. And even here, no, Vedic system says you by following all this, you get the higher planets, you get enjoyment. But Krishna says in the 8th chapter, he says, no, don't worry. By squeezing in Krishna consciousness in your daily activities, you will continue to get that, and which we actually see from experience. Even though we are not qualified for any material gains, but still Krishna, he doesn't see our qualification. He continues to support us materially as well, the Lord, and this can never be destroyed. Whatever we do, it can never be destroyed. That is whatever activities we perform in devotion. So we see that even in the sixth chapter of Bhagavad Gita also, he says, my devotee is never destroyed. Na? He says, one who does good, my friend, is never overcome by evil. So it doesn't matter. I may be in prison, but still, slowly and steadily, and if I continue to inject Krishna consciousness in daily activities, then I steadily make progress towards the topmost position of the great devotees, even though currently I have no qualification whatsoever for that. And even in the ninth chapter also, the Krishna gives us 9.31, I think. Sorry, where's that? Yeah. Kshipram bhavati dharmatma sachvat chantim nigacchati kaunteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. He quickly becomes righteous and attains lasting peace. O son of Kunti, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. He gives us a guarantee, whatever is our, irrespective of what is our current condition in life. So Krishna is effectively, he's telling us to practice perfection. I may not be perfect, but he's telling both in the 9th chapter as well as 18th chapter, he says, Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskaru. No? Just by doing this so-called simple activities, so having these activities in my daily life, by practicing this perfection, I'll attain the same perfection. So that's where I just wanted to conclude. So with today's verse, where initially we saw that how this path of Pravriti Marga, which Maharaj Raghugana is saying, that has been totally rejected by Srila Prabhupada. So is the answer Nivritti Marga, renunciation, or topmost devotional service, which I have no qualification for. So by the spiritual masters and the Acharya's mercy, they have revealed to us the middle path by which, while we are absorbed in our daily activities, how we can inject Krishna consciousness and ultimately and eventually attain perfection. So yeah, I just wanted to conclude with that. So if any of the devotees want to add or correct anything or any other comments, so kindly do so.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavad Pranam. Thank you.
Dandavad Pranam, Prabhu.
Very nice, explaining so nicely from different verses the contents of this verse, so in a diverse way from all different angles. And you have very nicely placed from the beginning that there are two paths, Pravriti Marg and Nivritti Marg, that is preferred, that is prescribed in the Vedas. Because Veda is meant for all whole people, or the whole of the people, so there are different kinds of people. So depending on their situation, some have been suggested that they go by step. And but as you have nicely pointed out that in 245, Sri Krishna is telling Arjuna also in Bhagavad Gita that Trigunna Vishaya Veda. That means the Veda is normally dealing with these three aspects, but you have to rise above it. That is the message of Prabhupada is also trying to bring, that the path of, we have to rise above that, and some gradually can do that, but that is meant for, that is why the Varnashrama Dharma was introduced as 413. It has been clearly mentioned by Sri Krishna that Chaturvarna Maya system Guna Karma. He has created it, although he is above it. But the problem with this both Varnashrama system and the Pravriti Marg is that it takes very long time, and for the path of devotional service is much easier, and it is a quick process also. It's just like going to a very top building. You go slow, step by step, and ultimately reach there. But the process of Bhakti Marg is easier, and ultimately that one has to reach there to understand the God finally. So that is why Prabhupada has told in different places, in another places also. He have also mentioned that when a discussion between Ramananda Rai and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when Ramananda Rai initially told that by performing their prescribed duties, one can gradually can progress in devotional service. Because Chaitanya Prabhu was asking him, But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately pointed to Iha Bhajyo, but speak further. That means there is other better process than this. In this way, the one has to go up, and ultimately, because we have to go to the highest place, it is always better that we try devotional service, and devotional service, okamo sarvokamoba, whatever one wants. If we go to the Krishna directly, I mean the to Bhakti Marg, we can overcome all these obstacles, and ultimately, even those who wants for material desire, they can also go to the Lord, and ultimately Krishna purifies them, and they can progress further, because Krishna doesn't allow, like other demigods, just to remain on the material level. He wants his devotees to cross over this material obstacle and reach and go to his planet. So that is the best process, and one should accept the devotional service from the beginning. That will lessen their time and the endeavor, and ultimately, with the mercy of the devotees and the Krishna, they can ultimately reach the goal much easy and quickly. I think that is what Prabhupada is through his entire life is trying to tell us. And in this present age, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, if one chants it, that purifies him, and he gradually progresses quickly towards by devotional service and reach the ultimate goal of human life. Thank you very much, Prabhu, for your very nice class of this regard. Hare
Especially
Krishna.
bringing out that bhakti can even a so-called material goals also, it can meet bhakti, the same the process. No, thank you for that. Thank you for pointing on that. Any other?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, Dhanavad Pranam.
Dhanavad Pranam, Prabhu.
Thank you for very elaborately explaining this verse with so many quotations. One of the issues is that because the Vedas prescribe the four Purusarthas and gradual elevation, some people just take it that is the end. You know, they don't think that above the four Purusarthas is the Pancham Purusha, which is devotional service or the love of Godhead. So because it's not prescribed, people just follow it blindly, not realizing that there is another Purusartha above that. I think that's one of the not shortcoming, but we can say what Lord Chaitanya mentioned, that there's another Purusartha above that, and what's happening is even Krishna says the three gunya, one and two, above the Vedas, but he is not saying we should discard it. I mean, the Mayavadis and the Buddhists want to discard. They still follow the Vedas, so there will be gradual elevation. It's not the fast, like lift. So I think this via the what I recognized diving, that if you follow the Vedas, there's nothing, we can still progress.
Correct.
Yeah, this one point that you want to mention. Thank you, Prabhu.
Oh, thank you. That's what like I was just thinking that Krishna is himself quite cautious in the Bhagavad Gita. No, he doesn't. He goes step by step, and he says people should go step by step. But the Acharya is, as you said, Acharya is even more merciful than Krishna. He says Krishna is saying go by step, but I tell you a path by which you can jump the ladder. So something like that. Krishna, because Krishna doesn't want to disturb the system, so he says, okay, go step by step, don't disturb the system here. But Acharya is saying, no, I'll tell you a secret, come.
Yeah, very important point. Thank you, Prabhu. We go a few minutes. Anybody have more reflection or point we can still discuss? If not, we can close the session here.
Yes, Prabhu, we can end that.
Yeah, Prabhu, that doesn't we should close here. Vancha kalpatarubhyo.
Vanchakalpatarubhyascha
कृपासिन्धुभ्यैव पतितानां
पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय
His Grace Poshak Madhav Prabhu ki
Prabhupada
jai,
ki
Srila
jai.
Prabhupada ki
की
jai,
जय
Gaur Premanande,
Hari
हरि
Bol.
हरि बोल
all glories to assembled
Hare
devotees.
Krishna.
हरे
Thank you
कृष्ण
very much, Prabhu.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.